Have you ever wanted to make more money with property investing? Well, today's your answer because we are here with Marcus, and he will tell us all about how to achieve high returns with property investing. And he is a serial entrepreneur with a multitude of businesses that he invests his time into. And he is all the way from the Caribbean, a small island called St. Croix. And he served 8 years in the United States Navy, where he honed his skills. And then he started leveraging those skills for property investing. So the first question I have is, how did you get started in property investing? And why should entrepreneurs consider property investing as a way to put their money?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Thank you. First off, thank you for having me. A great question. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to be on your incredible show. One reason why I encourage people to start with real estate, because it's the oldest profession, it's the oldest skill since the Egyptians, right? Since going back in time. And so property investment is one of these safeguards that I feel to building wealth and building legacy and building for the future, right? You should build your future, and there's always going to be a need, no matter what Amazon's doing, no matter what the political picture is doing, no matter what the economy is doing, people are always going to need housing. And so I encourage everyone that I meet, get into investing, get into real estate, some way, somehow, physical real estate, digital real estate, wherever that facet may be, because it is always going to be a necessity, whether you're buying real estate here on planet Earth or on the moon, right? Or the Elon Musk or Tesla or the big thinkers of the world. So it's hands down the best asset class out of all the asset classes there is.
Thank you. Tell us more about some of your success related to property investing.
So some of my successes started with house hacking. I first got my feet wet with house hacking and buying a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house, and then realizing, just joking amongst friends, that they were like, well, you could rent out your rooms for money. And it was just me in this 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house. And I jokingly put an ad out. And within 1 hour, I had someone reach out to me. And within a second hour, someone had knocked on the door, and I had first month's, last month's rent and security deposit in hand. It was the quickest money I had ever made in the shortest amount of time. Within 2 hours, I had made the equivalent of several paychecks added up. And so my journey started there. And once I got my feet wet, I had to have more, and just buying more properties and buying more assets. And then when I accrued about 4 properties, I dove into the Airbnb space and vacation rental space and diving in that and getting my feet with that. And that was a hassle all of itself. But there were months where it was so good. The deposits from the vacation rentals were just so high. I remember a month where I was just looking at a bank account in awe, because the bank account had literally just from that month alone, $10,000 in deposits from the rentals. You know, you couple that with some rental property and you're looking pretty good and you're feeling pretty confident, and there's not much standing in your way from there.
Thank you. Tell us more about your specific strategy, because there's so many property investing strategies.
My specific philosophy is not new, but I encourage, especially for veterans. So I'm a veteran, I'm a disabled veteran, served in the United States Navy for 8 years. And so my specific strategy works well for veterans, because you can utilize your VA loan ability, your honorable discharge, service connected. You can acquire a home up to 4 units to get into real estate, and you can buy as low as a 4-plex. Once you get that 4-plex, you can live in 1 unit and you can rent out the rest. And so one of the unique things that veterans, especially active duty, can participate in is, let's say I get stationed in Georgia. So I would buy a 4-plex in Georgia and then live in that property for the duration of my tour. And then when I move to, let's say, Bangor, Washington, I would refinance out of the old fourplex, right, to free up that VA loan property. And then where I moved to, where the military moved me to, because the military pays for your move, they pay for your PCS, they pay for your family, they pay for your goods, they pay for your vehicle, everything. So now I've moved to a new location. I have refinanced the old property, the old fourplex, under a traditional or conventional loan. And now I've moved to Washington, D.C., and now I get to reuse that VA loan, which doesn't require a down payment again, and move to that place. And now I can buy another fourplex using the VA loan with zero down payment. And I can do this over and over and over again and wash, rinse, and repeat and grow my portfolio over time.
Thank you. So I'm quite familiar with the similar strategy where I was, for example, renting out rooms in a property. And in the UK, that's a very good strategy because it allows a lot of students or young professionals to have more affordable rent. And, it gives them kind of like a step on the property market in the sense of having a place to rent until they figure their lives out and they want to have their own property. So I wonder, what other strategies do you have, especially for people that are not necessarily veterans? Or do you specialize in helping veterans in particular?
So I specialize in helping veterans in particular, but I encourage anyone, everyone, any young man, any young girl that I see, do not buy a single family home. That is a myth, right? That's the myth that we all get caught up in, is go to school, get married, go to college, get your education, and buy the house with a picket fence and a dog, and that's it. That's where the story ends. And I align myself with we all know this, the Grant Cardones of the world, the big speakers of the world. Buying a single family house is not an asset. It's an expense. It's a liability. And so I encourage every young boy, young girl to buy as much property as they can. And buying a multi-unit simplifies the buying process because you get more property than just a single family home. And you can actually live in the space and you can have help assisting anyone. So especially for first-time home buyers. So there's many states that offer first-time home buyers. And this new political arena that's coming up, who knows what will happen. But there's still a lot of first-time home buyer programs. So I tell people to tap in. Some first-time home buyer programs require you to take a class. They require you to take some classes and to qualify for that program. But that's a benefit to you, especially if you can get into a duplex and get into that property with zero to little money down, right? So what's the point of working 2-3 jobs? I did a post on my social media page, and there are thousands upon thousands of people making money and just wasting away. They're tired, they're burnt out, they're exhausted. Here's a way to put your money, save your money, and invest it in something that pays you back long term.
Thank you. Tell us how you help veterans to get on the property market. Is it that you give them coaching? Is it that you give them support? Is it that you have online courses? Or how can people learn more about this?
So people can learn more about my strategies and what I do. They can tap in with me directly and I can counsel them one-on-one through a consultation, or they can just watch my podcast, Gentleman Style Podcast show, and they can learn all these things that I talk about because I also interview guests about the same things that I do and that I encourage them to do and tap into. So I do the one-on-one consultations. I also invite them to tune into the show and I send them links and audiobooks and books to read. And I help them realize that there's more to life than just the traditional 9-to-5.
Thank you. How can entrepreneurs get that initial deposit in order to buy something, to buy a property?
So please forgive me, but the only way I know how is to grind, right? Grind, grit, hustle, but it's a better grind, right? Uber, DoorDash, Lyft, get that money, get a savings account. One of the applications that I use, it used to be called something else. It was called Digit. Now it's called Opportune. And what it does is it secretly links to your bank account. It uses the algorithm to find the savings in your checking account. And what it does is it slowly pulls money, small amounts of money from your checking account, especially if you assign it a goal. So let's say I want to have, by March 1st of next year, I want to have $5,000. So what the algorithm is going to do is going to link to your bank account and it's going to small amounts move little by little these amounts until you hit your goal. So when March 1st comes around, you have your $5,000 saved up And it's just taking change. It's taking small amounts, digital amounts. Most of the time it happens to me and I don't even notice the money's gone. And so that's one way. That's a cheat code to help you force you to save, because the automatic draft, it's a start. But we all know there are times where we have extra money. There's times we may have received bonuses, commissions from our job. And so those extra bonuses, the algorithm would link to your checking account, see those extra deposits and stash them away for you into another checking account that you can still access, but it's out of sight, out of mind. And that's the money mindset concept that I want to get to people, is you need to kind of hide the money away, but still have access to it to hit that goal. But you'll be so glad you did.
Thank you. What other ways are there for entrepreneurs to get access to that initial deposit they need to buy a property?
So you can use a hard money lender. I personally have not used a hard money lender. All the cash that I have used to acquire my real estate up until this point, and my rental properties and my vacation rental, has been my own cash. So I hate to say it, but the only way I know how is to grind, hustle, save. I mean, I worked 5 jobs at one point. I worked for the federal government during the day. I was a security guard at night. I delivered pizzas for Pizza Hut and Domino's Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. And then I did Uber and Lyft. So unfortunately, I'm sorry. Forgive me, y'all. The only way I know how to get that money. But I mean, $5,000, we blow that in a tax refund, right? We have that starter cash. And for first time home buyers, if you told me I could get you a duplex and all you have to do is come up with $5,000, that may seem unsurmounting. But let's say your daughter, your son has cancer. I told you, I need you to come up with $5,000 for this surgery to save your daughter's life. How many of you would have the money tomorrow? You do anything. And so you have to make it that important and you'll do it. And you have to have that mindset shift. All of this stuff, this advice means nothing if this doesn't change. Your mind has to change. And once you do that, you'll be glad you did.
Thank you. Tell us, what's a hard money lender? Is that a money shark, or what? What are you afraid?
A hard money lender is someone who's lending you money in the interim. So it's usually for a short duration. It can be for 3 months, 7 months, but it's not long-term financing like a bank who will give you a 15-year fixed rate or a 30-year fixed rate. These are people with cash who are lending it to you to get over the hump in your investing needs. So prime example, you're buying a $300,000 house and you have to come up with the down payment. So investors will use a hard money lender to lend them the down payment money, buy the real estate asset, and then usually in a year, they'll either refinance to a different bank, pull that cash and pay back the hard money lender their money because they only loaned it for them for a short time plus interest. So if I don't have the credit score today to buy this property for $300,000 and the down payment is, let's say, $10,000, a hard money lender can come in and lend me $10,000 plus interest for that year. While I work on my credit, fix my credit, and then at the end of that year, now I have an 800 credit score. Now I can go refinance, qualify for a traditional loan, get the cash, refinance, get the cash back, and pay back that hard money lender who loaned me the money to cover that down payment a year ago to pay them back. So that's what a hard money lender is. It's someone to lend you money for a very short duration of time that is negotiated at a predefined interest rate.
Thank you. People talk a lot about buying a property, no money down. And typically what that means is finding someone who will lend you the money, whether it's friends, whether it's an investor from a local networking group. Are there any other ways that you've used or that you have seen other people use that works in terms of getting that initial deposit in order to buy a property?
You hit the nail on the head. People borrow money. It's called syndication. People will use other people's money. So people will come together in mastermind groups and they'll collect a pot of money from the mastermind group. And it's all their money. So they're raising all the capital they need. In some cases, depending on the size of the group, they may even raise the total amount of the property. So if I'm buying a small apartment building for $300,000 and I have a group that's net worth of $1 million, there's $1 million in this small group that I have. So I may come to my group and say, hey, let's buy this property for our mastermind. And we all pool the money together, and they'll raise enough money for down payment, closing costs, attorney fees, insurances, all of it, property taxes and everything, and even restoration of the property. If there's some maintenance that needs to be done to the property, they'll raise all that money to buy that property. Like you said, like you, I haven't done that. I haven't done that personally. I have all used my money, my financing, my credit score, because before I go to you and ask you for $100,000, Lily, I want to be sure that I have really set the tone for it and really mastered this skill. So before I come to you, I'm going to show you not only, hey, I've done this 100 times and I know what I'm doing. Here's my portfolio. Now I can come with confidence and the experience to ask you, hey, do you want to partner with me on this next multifamily deal? And you'll feel a little bit better to lend me that money because you'll see the confidence and you'll see the projects that I've already worked on in the past. And that also means years of experience too. How did you do during the '08 crash? How did you do during the COVID-19 pandemic? You want that history to know what kind of lender I am or what kind of borrower I am. And that gives you the confidence to lend me more money. So up until this point, I've seen what you've seen, which is people typically syndicate, or they use hard money lenders, or they use their own cash or their own credit score. But that's what you hear. The no money down concept, is because they're not using any of their own cash. They're using yours.
Okay. What's the best way to get higher returns on your property investment?
So deliver value, right? You want to make those improvements. And I'm not talking about flooring and granite countertops. Those actually don't increase value. What you want to do is you want to increase the value to your tenants and who's actually going to live there. There's too many people right now. That's why there's legislation going around and talks going around about putting cap rates and limits on landlords for raising rent, because you have a lot of landlords raising rent, but you're not giving anything in return. So the best way to get the highest returns from your property is deliver value. Prime example, I was looking at a sixplex, and the sixplex had parking, and they had empty room that was attached to the building, which had washer and dryer hookups. But the tenants who were currently occupying the property had to go off site to do their laundry and their washing and drying. Well, right then and there, I can offer washer and dryers. I can install washer and dryers because the connections are already in that shed. So I can install a coin laundry system. I can offer it to them. And now guess what happens when I offer that coin laundry system and that washer and dryer? And now my tenants don't have to leave the grounds to go do laundry every Sunday or Saturday. Guess what I can now do? I can raise rents, and the tenants don't have a problem with that, right? So you want to do those types of improvements, right? If you have a lot of tenants with dogs, or you have a lot of tenants in my area specifically, there's a lot of people with pets, especially in this world of pet friendly, but it's my mental health dog. This is my mental health stress dog. So if you live in that type of community, right, you want to be able to offer amenities to service those dogs. So prime example, offering dog treats, maybe creating a small little dog park for them to enjoy their pets and have their pets exercise and walk around. And so those types of improvements are true value. Not the cosmetic stuff, not the lipstick stuff, not painting a wall. That's not valuable to the tenant, because the tenant may come in there and not like the color and repaint it themselves anyway. So offering true value allows you to raise the value on your property in a legal and compliant and friendly way. And tenants are happy to pay those costs, those increases, because they're not going to get that anywhere else.
That's very interesting. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. I wonder what other ways are there to get higher returns with property investing versus what everyone else is doing in the market?
Some other ways to increase value, again, is the auxiliary stuff. So if your space, if your building is worthy enough, I like to bring in vendors, right? And it's kind of weird, but I really push myself. So having a food truck come by every Wednesday or every Friday and serving delicious. There's a lot of food trucks in this area here. And so having a food truck come by every Friday and offer the tenants some hot, delicious food. The big thing around here for me is Caribbean food, So if I can get a local food truck to deliver some oxtail, some jerk chicken, some rice and beans, and have those things on site on the property every Tuesday that the tenants know is coming and expecting every time, that's valuable. And now the food truck vendor pays you to allow them to offer this service every Friday. So that's a weekly income. If your building can handle it and accommodate putting an ATM on site, putting vending machines on site. Those things don't add big revenue, but those auxiliary revenue makes the property more valuable to outside tenants. So now my tenants don't have to leave the area. They don't have to go in the middle of the night to go get cash. There's an ATM on site that can raise the value and again, make you money on the side for your own property, for your own building. So those are some out of the box thinking ways that I saw increase the value on the money side.
Wow, I have never heard that before.
ATMs and food trucks, just like housing, people like to eat.
Yes, I find that quite fascinating, especially because, for example, in the UK, I don't think we have so much the food truck culture. I mean, we either eat at home or we eat in a restaurant, not so much in a food truck. I mean, I don't think I've ever eaten in a food truck, but I'm a special one. So,
what about wine? Do you enjoy a good wine?
Not particularly, but if there's wine that is at a party where I'm at, then I might drink a little bit, but no. But that's I'm fair. An exception. So maybe, yes, let's say, give me this wine example. How would that work in terms of being able to leverage that interest for you to hike up the rent?
So if I have a clubhouse, I can offer samples, wine samplings. If I live in the UK, I may look at locally what they're doing, but wine comes to mind when I think overseas. And so I may have a local wine vineyard, owner of a vineyard, and he wants to celebrate his 50th year in business. Well, come to my property and let's have samples of the wine that I can offer to my tenants, and they can sample a local wine. The vendor makes money because he's there in selling his goods, his wine, and it's delicious, it's fruitful, has a bold body, and it's what the locals may want, what the tenants may want, and they may appreciate it. And so it's like, if I have the ability to put, let's say instead of a laundry room on that sixplex, I turned it into kind of like a lounge area where you can lounge and you can have little parties and get-togethers, of maybe a pool table, and play pool. So an entertainment center, right? Well, now I can have my local wine vendor come through, serve bottles of wine, tell you about the wine and the winemaking process that he went to distill this delicious tasting wine. And now he's making money and my clubhouse is making money. They can have birthdays, they can have parties that they can pay me to lease out that space for certain amounts of times and days throughout the year, right? A birthday is a big thing. Graduation from college or a major university is a big thing. So all these things can be done in that attached unit that has the hookups that I told you about earlier. So you can get really creative with extra space in that way.
Okay, that is quite interesting. So can you think about something that could be potentially applicable to the UK market? What I mean by that, for example, I used to live in a luxury building. And can you think of something that could be added as an ancillary product that could help, let's say, the building manager to make extra revenue? Like you said, maybe like the ATM machines and the vending machines, which I thought that was a really brilliant idea. And then there's another thing that's very common, which is that room rentals are very common. So thousands of people, I'm not sure if not hundreds of thousands of people are living in room rentals. So they're just renting the room, not like a studio, or not like they don't have their own apartment. So what do you think could be leveraged in order to enhance the rental for a property where you're renting by the room?
I'm trying to think of using, so forgive me, I've never been to the UK. So what is liked and what is really, I like high tea. Is high tea, afternoon tea, is that big in the UK?
Yes and no. So yes
and no.
Okay, so yes, it's an English thing that people do, but because I mainly deal with the expat market, and most commonly French, Spanish, and Italian. That's where my tenants tend to be from. And I've been property managing for 13 years, but I've scaled back. So now I do publishing. But I'm just curious for people who still do property management, what they could leverage in order to increase the property rental revenue by perhaps adding some ancillary products, like you said. And, if you have, let's say, an apartment where you're renting by the room, or if you have, let's say, a luxury building, what can you bring there that could be something that could interest the tenants to spend more?
So on top of what I already added before, the only thing that comes to mind, I think of the Hilton. One of the things that the Hilton does, everybody knows the Hilton and their brand. But one of the things the Hilton does that is unique, and I intend to incorporate one day into my business some way, somehow, is that they encourage their staff and their team to have that customer service mindset. And so one of the examples I read is the Ritz-Carlton. That's what it is. Ritz-Carlton encourages their staff and team to have that entrepreneurial mindset and that customer service mindset. By every employee in the Ritz-Carlton has a accessible line of credit. And so that line of credit for each employee or every property manager is used for anything. They can use it for anything. They don't have to get approval. They don't have to seek the manager out. So the Ritz-Carlton example was they had someone check in to their hotel and they had issues with their luggage and the airline lost their luggage. And so that bellhop was listening to the conversation and had underwear and T-shirt and garments delivered to their room because they had access to their own individual line of credit and was able to deliver fresh linen to that resident who and his wife and his family who had their luggage lost. And so that experience will live forever in their mind. So guess what? The Ritz-Carlton, people have no problem paying that Ritz-Carlton price because they know that level of customer service is there. So that's something that you want to get your team involved, your property management team involved, and express those kind of ideas. And it was unique to me because that's not done here in the US and in the Caribbean either. So that level of customer service should be modeled, I feel.
Wow, I really love that. The only thing is that when you're kind of like trying to increase profit and kind of diminish costs as much as possible, and then you have, I don't know, a mortgage or some other payments to make, it's a difficult thing to do. But of course, for example, people who pay to stay in the Ritz-Carlton, they are paying quite a lot. So then the profit margin is enough, so much so that there is enough margin to keep for over delivering and giving a really excellent experience. But if you're running more like a budget friendly, hostel type accommodation, then there isn't so much of a big budget to be able to do that on a, long term. Having said that, I have had experiences where you can say to some extent I over delivered because, for example, in the UK, it's very common for property managers to switch off around 5 or 6. And then, if it's weekend or if it's beyond 6 o'clock, they're not reachable. Whereas, for example, for me, I was always reachable. And I mean, I was always literally always reachable, even 2 a.m., right? So I had a funny thing where the same guy, interestingly enough, his stuff was stolen at the gym. So he went swimming and then all he was wearing was his shorts. He didn't even have his shoes and he was wearing a towel, Wow. So he came home wearing a towel and he WhatsApped me and of course I was available and he said, "Oh, I lost my key. Can you help me?" And it was like 9 p.m. and I said, "Yes, sure, I'm coming." So I gave him, a new key. And, it's a very unfortunate event, but I can tell you most agencies, if not all, they would be closed at that time and they wouldn't care if your house burns down, because 6 o'clock is 6 o'clock, that's the end of my time and that's the end of it. Right. Whereas for me, I was never like this. I always deeply care about their experience. And another thing that happened was he forgot his key again and he started, banging the door in the morning. And I happened to live in the flat below. And so I did wake up and I was able to let him in as well, wearing my white mask and no shoes. but I did manage to let him in to his flat. So at 4 a.m. So it's like, there are certain little things that you can do to over deliver, but of course you can always go beyond, and that will, make a difference in terms of what clients feel about the experience that you've given long term. I'm wondering about other things that you've used, because I just find your method of adding ancillary products so attractive, so exciting, so fascinating. So I wonder, is there anything else that you have in terms of adding extra value, adding extra perceived value to clients, and also adding a tiny bit of an extra income to the property investing that you do in the US?
So the only other thing I would do, and when I get to moments where I'm trying to find value, is ask your tenants, do surveys, right? Do surveys, find out what their needs are, what is lacking. Because in my properties in the beginning, I was that close and that reachable and that accessible. But later on, I grew to hire other people to do those things. And I was, a little bit further removed. But you still care about your properties. You still want to know what's going on. And so in those moments where you're looking for value and you're looking for opportunities to really dig in and be different, right? A survey doesn't hurt either. Asking the question, what are you guys looking for? What do you guys experience? And I find those moments, people will tell you, people are brutally honest, especially in this day and age. People are brutally honest with telling you what they want, what they expect. And then you and your property management team can sit down and hash these out. And we can have a whole whiteboard meeting and say, hey, these are the common things that people are requesting. They're asking for a dog park. They're asking for, like I had one property where there was one ATM in the building, but the tenants were older. Right. And so they were, 60, 70, 80 years old. And so the tenants didn't like having to go downstairs to access the ATM. So they wanted an ATM on each floor. And this is a 10-story building. So there's 10 floors. And so that's me getting with the vendor and saying, hey, do you have the capacity to supply an ATM on each floor? Where will we put it? And what I discovered was the vendor actually had, besides this traditional stand-up unit model ATM, he actually had wall-mounted units that he could literally mount on the wall. It takes up no square footage. It takes up no floor space. He had each one mounted to the wall and all those ATMs filled on a regular recurring basis. And he was also able to offer differing denominations. So he had ATMs that could dispense. It was tens and $50 bills. So the ATM could dispense, if you wanted $100, it could dispense $100 in two $50 bills or four $20 bills. If you wanted $120, it could dispense two $50 bills and a $20 bill to give you what you want. And that access also kind of trickled down to the vending machines, right? So when they're wanting snacks, they may not want to pull out $50 bills to put in a vending machine for $1.50 cheap bag of Cheetos. And so having the different options available and having access to them on each floor gave them a renewed accessibility. But again, I go back to just ask. People will brutally tell you what they want. And then you and your team can sit down and really hash into, hey, are these feasible? Do these things increase our bottom line? Can we do this? Can we give an employee a credit line? Can we give the laundry attendant a credit line? Can we give the janitorial staff a credit line? Just to name a few. Are they complaining about security? Well, what's the increased cost of security, of having on-site security? And what does that look like? And can we offer it? Well, if we give it, can we raise rents to, and what will we raise rents to deliver that on-site security? Because there's a different cost for hiring a local police officer or a local, I think it's called like a local sheriff or warrant officer, or do I just need to hire unarmed security, some guy with a pepper spray, and what does those two costs cost? And then what will I need to increase the rents for both of these to justify the cost? And so those are things that people will tell you openly about with no resolution, no fear.
Thank you. I loved what you said, especially because I find it quite out of the box. And you're also tapping into the lifestyles of the local populations and what they desire. And the other thing I'm getting as well is that it takes quite a lot of discipline. And I think that because you used to be a veteran, you have quite a lot of discipline. You're able to channel that in the right places. And entrepreneurs listening also need to channel some of their skills into disciplining themselves enough as to save for a deposit and to get higher returns on their investment with property.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.